I'm excited about being here today. I enjoy talking to people. I do affect people's lives, and I hope I can affect yours. I've been doing these seminars for about 7 years. My name is Joel Dunlap, and it's an exciting job because you do affect people's lives, and they go home and talk to other people. Now, that's the important thing today, is to be sure and go home and talk to your family. You never know who you may affect. You know, I do a lot of analysis work on crimes and things like that, and every year I see the victims are getting younger and younger. And it's shocking. It's very depressing. It's frightening. One of the things I've discovered lately is that, you know, like 3 years ago, I never heard of a 10-year-old girl being raped. And now I hear it all the time. I was interviewing some rapists one time, and I asked them why. Why are they picking on young girls? And I was shocked at the answer. One of them says because there's less chances of having AIDS from raping a 10-year-old girl. And that really opened up my eyes, and it really shocked me. The other problem is the economy. Mom and dad are having to work, and then they're leaving those kids home by themselves. I hope today to express to you my feelings on what we can do and what we need to do, and the importance of going home and talking to your family. If you don't, you may regret it someday. I've had a lot of experience at doing this. I grew up in Baytown, Texas, and graduated from high school, and said 1968, and I went in the Army. And I trained for a whole year. And it was very rough training. I became an airborne ranger. And of course, that was before ice cream. But anyway, I do like ice cream. Anyway, I went to Vietnam. I volunteered, and I had an exciting time there. I was a team leader for long-range recon patrol, and then later I was in special operations where we'd go into Cambodia and rescue shot-down pilots. It was an exciting job. We did rescue some POWs. And then I came home from Vietnam, and 6 months later I went to Thailand as a missionary for my church for 2 years. So I've been a mercenary and a missionary. Hopefully now I'm normal. My wife says I'm not a twitch once in a while. I learned Thai and Laotian fluently. I came home, got married, and in 1980 I went back to Thailand for about 4 years as a special agent for a certain government agency. While there, I was in constant fear for the safety of my family. My fourth child was born there, so I was always in constant fear for their safety. And by the way, I do have 6, so don't get too close. I'm a carrier. At least that's what my wife tells me all the time. Anyway, I learned how to take care of my family. I learned how to teach them, and that's what's important. We got to teach these kids. You know, I saw where a young boy, 4 years old, was kidnapped one day, and they dumped him somewhere by himself. They just left him on the street. The authorities found him. He knew his first name, thought he was from Texas. Took the FBI 3 days to find out he was from a different state because his parents had never taught him his name and address. That's ridiculous. If a kid can talk, they ought to know their name and address. I know of a 6-year-old boy was kidnapped. He escaped 2 states away. He got to a telephone, dialed 0, area code, and the number, and asked his daddy what he should do. Could you imagine getting a phone call like that? Or worse yet, can you imagine never getting that phone call because you never taught your child how to dial collect? I was shocked one day. I called home. My 10-year-old daughter answered the phone. The operator kept saying, will you accept charges? Will you accept charges? She didn't know what to do. I had to say yes. It's Dad. Say yes. I went home and had a meeting with my family, and I was shocked again. My 18-year-old son did not know how to dial collect. He'd never done it. Now I wish I'd never taught him. I'm sure some of you may relate with that. I've been doing this for about 7 years, and I get a lot of letters from people. This is one of my favorite. This woman saw my program at a bank, took a brochure home that I have for you, and read it to her daughter, and that's all she did. 2 weeks later, this 14-year-old girl was kidnapped off a junior high parking lot by 2 men that got out of prison the day before for rape. They threw the little girl in the back of the van and took off. Well, this little girl did not get raped, and she got herself out of that situation alive. Now, to me, that's a miracle. Her mom says here, I'm here to tell you, without having heard your presentation, I wouldn't have had to talk with my daughter. That's how important it can be. I can tell you hundreds of examples like this where people talked to their families or didn't talk to their families. So that's very important. I'll tell you how she got out of that later. It's very important that you talk to your families, especially your husbands. I know some of you have these macho husbands, you know, and I don't care how tough your husband thinks he is. He's no match for a dope addict. I've seen it take 5 police officers to hold down 1 gallon crack, and he nearly whipped all 5 of them. So please go home and talk to your husbands also. Now, a lot of the statistics, you see the different crimes throughout the nation, and you know, some of the most dangerous occupations, for instance, cab drivers, police officers, real estate agents, convenience store clerks. What do all 4 of these do? They deal with the public on the street. So when you go out there and deal with the public, you have to be more careful. You have to develop better habits, things like this. You know, some of the top rape victims that I discovered, nurses, they work shift work in dangerous areas. Housewives, they're home all day. They think they're in a protected environment. You know what a housewife will do? She'll open the door to strangers. She'll leave her garage door open all day. She'll go visit neighbors, leave her front door wide open. Do you do that? Could I have your address, please? No. You do look like you have a lot of bad habits. Number 1 rape victim, one of the highest ones that I could find, were school teachers. Why in the world school teachers? Well, what time of day they get out of work, 3:30 or 4? And what do they do on the way home? They go to the grocery store. The guy in the parking lot can pretty well bet any woman in a grocery store that time of day, her husband probably isn't home. What do most of you do when you walk in from the grocery store? You put your groceries on the counter, you turn around to shut the door. And someday when you turn around, there'll be a man standing there looking at you. That's how the majority of the women get attacked in this nation. The guy walks in behind them. I heard of one rapist they caught last summer. He raped 20 women in 2 months. Every one of them was over 70 years old. And every one of them was walking in from the grocery store, carrying the groceries, left the door open, he walked in behind them. So, you know, I don't really care about the door. My wife props the door open and goes back and forth 5 or 6 times. So you got 6 kids, you got to do that. I'm concerned before you ever get home. Do you ever look behind you when you're going home to see if someone might be following you? It's not difficult. You look in the rearview mirror. Do you ever look behind you when you turn the corner to your house to see if someone might be coming in behind you? When you pull up in your driveway, would you notice 2 men sitting in a strange car across the street, parked there? That's how you prevent the crime before you ever get home. It's not difficult being safe, but it is necessary. They have today in many of the areas what's called drive-by robberies. It's one of the most effective crimes I've ever seen. It developed from a group called the Rolex Bandits. They used to follow guys home with Rolexes, mug them in their own front yard. Well, it got publicized real well, and everybody got the idea, well, let's just follow everybody home. So all they do is follow you home. And what do? You pull up in your driveway, you stop your car, put it in park, turn the key off, turn the lights off, open your door, and grab your stuff. And when you start to get out, the guy's standing there with a gun pointed at you. He grabs your purse, your wallet, your watch, jumps in the car and takes off. It takes 5 seconds. It's a very effective crime. They caught 2 men one night, had 30 purses in the backseat of their car, and it was only 8 o'clock at night. This is serious. But that might have been prevented if you would have noticed over your shoulder. That's how simple crime prevention can be. You know, one of the most dangerous places in town is your front door. According to a lot of authorities, more people mugged in their own front yard. Well, why is that? Well, a lot of people leave the house the same time every day. And all it takes one man hiding in the bushes and you're in big trouble. So trim back the bushes outside your front door area. Get a lot of lights outside. That's always effective. You know, it bothers me that people say, well, what's the most dangerous time of the year? Of course, for shopping, it's between September and December. Everybody's shopping. Times have changed. It gets darker sooner, things like this. What's the most dangerous time for children? I think the first week of June is. The first week of June, the kids are out of school. They're home by themselves. And mom and dad are working. And that is bad because they haven't taken time to teach their children what to do if a stranger knocks on the door. You know, I know of a fella, about 55 years old, 6 foot tall, gray-haired, wears a nice suit, and he drives a Mercedes. He knocks on the door and says, I'm Dr. So-and-so from a local hospital. My car phone just broke. It's an emergency. Can I borrow your telephone? The little kid looks at the nice, distinguished gentleman driving a $75,000 car. He's a rapist. He's raped a lot of little kids. He's been active for about 5 years from what I know. This is simple. Sir, what's the phone number? I'll make the call for you. If he's legit, he'll let you. If he's not, he'll argue with you. Don't open the door to anyone you don't know. Deadbolt locks, peepholes, lights outside. Use those simple security devices. But one thing that people do is they teach their kids to act like they're not home. And some of you may do that. You see a big ugly guy outside and you think, well, I'm going to act like I'm not home. I don't know who he is. Well, that's the worst thing you can do. What if he kicks the door down? I've seen him take a tire tool, jab it in the door frame, split the door frame open. I've seen him take a Black & Decker saber saw, battery operated, and cut your deadbolt lock right out of your door. And one time I saw a guy take an electric chainsaw, plug in the man's own outlet, cut his front door down with it. In 10 seconds they're walking in your front door. They can do that. I'd a lot rather have him on the other side of that locked door, talking to him. I think you ought to let him know you're home. Let him know you're home, but create an illusion that makes him think that you're not alone. Now this is simple. It's stupid, but it's simple. As you go to the door, yell as loud as you can. John, Jack, y'all keep your seat. I'll check the door. Gives the impression John and Jack is there. Jack, you 250-pound hunk, would you be careful with that shotgun? It might work, it might not. I've had a lot of people do that. When they got to the door, the guy had taken off. 75-year-old friend of mine that I know of has been attacked twice by dope addicts. Miracle she doesn't have AIDS. By her front door is a tape recorder of a great big dog. My dog, I made the tape. And as she goes to that front door, she pushes the play button, and this dog is tearing up the front door. And she yells, I'm sorry, sir, but my dog bites. I better not open that door. Simple little illusion. That's all you got to do. Who's going to kick the door down on a great big dog? Think about that. Now, I must warn you, ladies, this trick will backfire. The lady went to the door and she yelled, honey, I'll get the door. Turned out to be her honey outside the front door. She went in, looked underneath the bed for honey number 2. So be careful about that little illusion. Don't want to get you in trouble. Like I said, deadbolt locks, peepholes, lights outside, use them. And one of the best burglar alarm systems I have ever seen is a nosy neighbor. You do look like a nosy neighbor. Oh, you're probably never home to be nosy, though. Nosy neighbors save lives. Get to know your neighbors. They're the best security device you got. I know of a woman that went outside her house one day, go to work. She got in a car. The battery was gone. She went in to call a mechanic. He said, I need some information off the car. So she went back out. There's the battery. It's back. And there's a note on it saying, we're so sorry. We had to borrow your battery. It was an emergency. We had to jump-start our car. We hope that these 2 tickets to the local football game will help compensate you for your troubles. That night, she and her husband went to the local football game, and they stole everything out of their house while they were at the game. You see how simple it can happen? You know, they pulled up a big truck in the front yard, and they stole everything. They took a razor blade and cut all the carpet out and rolled it up and threw it in the truck, too. The shocking part of all is that in the neighbor's house, the neighbors were in the front yard watching. They didn't know their neighbors. They thought they were moving. Nosy neighbors is a good security device. Get to know your neighbors. It might save your life. Might make life more interesting, too. We had a little girl in our hometown, 4 years old. She opened the door to a stranger while Mom was in the shower. We got a lot of little kids like that like to help Mom and Dad. And they hear somebody knock at the door. What do? You go to the door. So they do, too. If you got little tiny children that don't know any better, I recommend the thumb latch at the top of the door that can easily be locked and unlocked, but yet the child has to go to some trouble to get to it. Teach your children about that sort of thing. Well, anyway, this man walked in. Mom was in the shower. 4-year-old girl lets him in. She looks him in the eye and says, Mister, Jesus is going to get you. Well, he ignored it and went in the kitchen. Big old Doberman standing there. She yelled, get him, Jesus. That was my best shot. You don't have to have a dog that big, but it does help. One of the best watchdogs I've ever seen was a Chihuahua named Jaws. Barked their little heads off. Dogs are good deterrents. I like dogs. Who doesn't have one? Anybody don't have one? Okay, all y'all go to the store today and you buy the biggest dog dish you can find. Put it by your back door and write Bruno on it, killer. Get a great big old beware bad dog sign. Make sure you can see it from the street. I've talked to a lot of crooks. They say they case the area. They see a big beware bad dog sign. They don't want to mess with that house. There's plenty of houses that don't have dogs. This is a simple illusion that you can create that might help. Some of you ladies may live alone. If you do, create the illusion you don't live alone. Once again, this is kind of stupid, but it works. Go to the garage sale and get a big old pair of boots. Put them outside the front door. Give the impression a man lives there. You may get a bad reputation, but that's all right. One lady said they kept stealing my boots, so she glued them to the concrete. Most dangerous situation of all is when you walk in your house and your house has been robbed. Any of y'all ever been robbed? Well, that's a dangerous situation. Do you know what people do every day? They come in, they go to the bathroom, they get something to drink, they sit down to watch TV, and that's when they make a brilliant discovery. TV's gone. What's the problem there? You've been home 10 minutes before you discovered you've been robbed. What if a dope addict was still there? That's the dangerous situation. A 75-year-old friend of mine attacked twice. Well, she's not going to make that mistake again, because on her coffee table, right in plain view, is nothing but a $100 bill. I told her to put a 20, she put 100. She opens up the front door. First thing she does is glances at the $100 bill. If it's gone, she runs. Now that's a pretty good trick. Of course, it won't work in my house. My wife and kids are a bunch of thieves. But learn to notice a VCR, the TV set, and anything of value. And if anything is wrong, now this is very simple, leave. Do you see how simple that was? I didn't say anything about getting your gun. I didn't say anything about using your telephone. A lot of statistics show if you go after that gun, you may die. You probably will. It's not worth your life. Get out of the house as quick as you can. You know, I did this talk recently for 75 utility workers, men. They asked me to come back and talk to their kids one night. I did. I had a 12-year-old girl in the front row. She never smiled. I know my jokes aren't that bad. So I asked a young girl, I says, hey, what's the matter? She says, I am terrified. We live in a dangerous part of this city. Down the street is a crack house. Everybody knows it. My parents go to work an hour and a half before I go to school. I come home 3 hours before my parents do. I don't watch TV because I won't hear the guy breaking in. That's a very disturbed little girl. It's sad she has to live in that environment. I told her about leaving money laying out in the open. I told her about noticing the VCR, the TV set. I told her about noticing the whole environment of the whole house. I also told her when she left, take a matchstick, stick it in the crack of the door, so when she comes home and somebody's opened the door, the matchstick will be gone. Things like that, little things that are safety devices. She came home the next week. She opened up her front door. She smelled cigarette smoke. Her parents don't smoke. She was alert enough to realize that and think about that. She ran to the neighbors. They called the police. The police found a man hiding in the house. He was a dope addict. He got the wrong house. He was going to the crack house. That's how simple, that's how easy that can happen. But that's also how simple it can be detected if you teach your children to be a little bit more careful, a little bit more alert when they're coming home from school, especially if they're by themselves. Now, I know of a guy that one time pulled up in his driveway. He saw his house being ransacked. His wife was with him in the car. His 2 kids were at the babysitter's next door. The man jumped out of his car and rushed in the front door of his house. 4 men shot that man dead. They grabbed his wife, dragged her in the backyard, and attacked her, and then shot her, but she didn't die. All that man had to do is put the car in reverse and leave. But he gave his life for his TV set. The sad part, he left a 3-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son that no longer have a daddy. I've had a lot of excitement in my life, a lot of traumatic experiences, Southeast Asia. I learned something. For one thing, I never want to be alone, and I never want to be forgotten. But most of all, I want to be a daddy. Anybody can be a father. That's easy. But it takes someone special to be a dad. And when you're a dad, you don't throw your life away on a TV set. That's stupid. That's what insurance is for. Well, guess what? I'm not going to be forgotten. My oldest child's named after me. She doesn't like it one bit. Actually, it's a boy. 6 kids call me daddy. And I don't have the right to throw my life away on something stupid. And I'm not going to do it. Oh, I could get my gun. I could go in there and take care of the situation, maybe. Maybe. Is it worth my life to find out if I can do it? It's not worth it. If my family's in there, my friends, a stranger, or whatever, I'll be the first one in the door. But not for my TV set, or my house, or my car. It's not worth my life. Now that's a message you better take home to your husbands and your teenage boys. You know, another thing I don't do, I pull out there on the freeway, I don't make anybody mad. Because if you make somebody mad out there on that freeway, you're in big trouble. Are you a honker? Do you do sign language? Are you a verbal abuser? Folks, you honk at the wrong person, you may die. I see it every day. I was going somewhere one time on the interstate freeway. It was 5:30 in the morning. I'm on the inside lane in my pickup truck. There's a pickup truck in front of me. We're doing 65, the speed limit, and here came a sports car up behind me. He could have easily gone around me, but no, I'm in his lane. So he flashes his lights at me. I don't like that. I don't like those people. They're obnoxious. They ought to die. I sort of wish I could shoot one someday. That's the airborne ranger talking in me. But the dad in me says, no, pull over. Just ignore it. Well, since the dad in me is a lot stronger, I pulled over. The guy went by. He got behind the other truck. He flashed his lights. That guy was not a daddy. He jammed on his brakes as hard as he could. The big steel bumper on the back of his truck just tore the whole front end out of that car. They got stopped together and they skidded to a screeching stop, nearly knocked me off the road. Well, I pulled off a few yards up ahead and I didn't know what to do. I just pulled off. I was kind of in shock. And then I saw something. The guy in the pickup truck was trying to get a shotgun out from behind his head. He had a gun rack. The guy in the sports car had already stuck out a nickel-plated automatic out the front of that window. I was kind of shocked. My old truck burned rubber for a whole mile. I met two idiots that morning. One of them flashed his lights. One of them stomped on his brakes. And those two men were willing to die on that freeway that day. And for what reason? Pride, stupidity, for one. I'm not going to do that because I owe my life to my family. And I'm not going to do it. And I suggest you not either. You know, one of the most popular street crimes in this nation is when you pull up to a red light and a guy jumps off the curb, grabs your car door and jerks the door open. And I guarantee you know what he's going to have? He's going to have a knife in his hand. And all you had to do was lock your car door. Do you see how simple crime prevention is? It's not that difficult. But according to a lot of authorities, the majority of the victims are men. Men don't lock the driver's side of their vehicle when they're driving. You lock yours? Do you really? You're not saying that because I got a knife in my hand pointed at you? Anybody can be a father. Take someone special to be a dad. You a dad? Well, guess what? Someday you might be because you lock your car door. Do you get the point I'm trying to make here? Everybody always does. Guess who gets mugged in parking lots more than anybody else? I'll give you a hint. Women. What kind of women? Mommies. More mommies mugged in parking lots than anybody else because how do mommies put the kids in the car? You watch a mommy, she'll spend 5 minutes in the back seat of the car putting the kid in the car seat with the derriere stuck out the back door. You see it all the time. Well, I don't know how to tell you to do that. I like personally get in the car, lock the door, then organize it. But if you're going to get in that back door and you're going to take time, I suggest before you get down, get to the car and look all the way around. If you see something suspicious, be careful about it. Jump in the car, lock the doors. But be quick getting the kid in the car because seriously, more mommies mugged in parking lots than anybody else. That's how simple it can happen. You know, it's not difficult being safe. For instance, you walk out of any building. A lot of the crooks tell me their number one choice is someone looking down with their head down, like a lot of the teenage girls these days coming out of malls. They got their head down, even teenage boys. Get your head up. Number one thing, you walk out of a building, get your head up. Now this is so simple. Take your eyes and look throughout that parking lot for anybody outside of a car. Make a mental note of it. Look for anybody inside of a car and then glance underneath all those cars. They do hide underneath cars sometimes. They will take a knife and cut your leg open as you walk by. You know, I don't want you out there on your hands and knees. You won't be wrapped around the muffler, but just be careful about that. Be totally alert when you walk out. You cannot be daydreaming. You cannot be piddling with something. You've got to be totally alert. Scan the parking lot, okay? Now, if someone approaches you, avoid them. Go back inside if you have to. Go get help. That's how you take care of yourself. That's how you stay safe. Now, out there on these freeways, they're doing things today that are unusual. You know, I was talking to a high school the other day, a bunch of students, and I asked them, I said, now, what are you going to do if you get bumped? They all said, I'm going to get a pencil and paper and get out to get the insurance information. I don't know who's teaching them that these days. I don't suggest it. These crooks steal a car, They see you. They bump you. You get out to look at the damage. The passenger gets out and jumps in your car and takes off with it. Or takes you with them. That's the worst part. From now on, I suggest stick your hand out the window, wave it vigorously like you're saying, follow me, put your flashers on, and just keep going. Get to where there's some witnesses before you stop and get out of that car. It's happening too much on the freeways. Does this make sense? Does everything I said make sense? Yes. It's simple common sense. It's not difficult. Listen, let's talk about the bad side now. I've given you some tips in the home, the car, the streets. You know, when you're walking on streets, don't walk in dark areas. Don't walk on the streets if you don't have to. And if you do, try to do it in the daylight hours and always be on the other side of the road so the cars are approaching you. Things like this. Be alert of your situation. Have an alternative plan in your head. If something does happen, what are you going to do? Think about it. Now let's talk about the bad side. What happens if you get attacked? Panic, fear, shock. It'll scare you to death. But this guy's going to make one mistake. If you're full of panic and fear, you may miss the opportunity to escape. How in the world did this little girl escape from two men? One of them had her in a headlock holding her down. The other one was driving away. This little girl knew she didn't have a chance. But she remembered something in the brochure that her mom read to her. One of the best weapons you have is your mind, but you can't use your mind if you're crying. So this little girl decided not to cry. She laid there quietly. I don't know how she did it. I don't know if I could have done it. The guy holding her down realized she wasn't doing like normal people do, which cry, beg, fight, struggle. She didn't do anything. He thought she was totally in shock. He thought she wouldn't be a threat. So he let her go. He got up, got talking to the driver. Next red light, they got in a big argument about which way to go. This little girl opened the door and jumped out. That's how you escape. That's one of the best letters I've ever received. It's on how to use your head to escape. I know of 6 women that fell on the ground and acted like they fainted. It's hard to move a limp body. The guy got scared and ran. I know of 8 women fell on the ground and acted like they had a seizure. And the guy got scared and ran. I know of a lady had a knife to her throat in a parking garage. She said, the man held a knife to her throat and said, "Lady, take your clothes off." She threw down her handbag. She grabbed her blouse, ripped it open, grabbed her bra, ripped it off, and the guy got scared and ran. She said, "I felt a little rejected." She did exactly what he said. But the manner she did it in is what scared him. All these ladies did the same thing in common. They did something the guy didn't expect. I was listening to Paul Harvey the other day, and he comes up with, he's really good. He told about how this one lady got out of a swimming pool, got on the elevator, headed up to her hotel room. 3 men got on board, turned the elevator off between the floors. They turned on the lady and said, "Lady, does it make you nervous to be stuck on the elevator with 3 men?" She said, "No, because I used to be one." They turned that elevator on and got out of there. I guarantee that would work for me. Use your head. It's the best weapon you've got. The Attorney General, one of the Attorney Generals wrote the Sexual Assault Handbook. I like to use it because it teaches common sense. There's nothing difficult about it. In it, he states how the majority of the people got out of sexual assaults. And that's what I like to teach, how the majority did it. By the way, the oldest woman raped that I know of was 99 years old. The youngest, 2 months. I don't care how old you are. I don't care what you look like. Today, I don't even care if you're male or female. Especially boys between ages 10 and 15 are being abducted and raped by men. Why 10 and 15? They usually have permission to go to their friend's house by themselves. But how do they go? They walk. They ride skateboards. They ride bicycles. And these guys pull up and pull them right off the street. So when you talk about rape today, I suggest you talk to everybody in your family. The Attorney General says the majority of the people escaped by talking their way out of it. That's what I recommend first. Talk to the guy. Calmly talk to him. Use your voice as a weapon. Calm him down. Don't cry, beg, or plead. Calm him down. It may not work. It has in many cases, though. If it looks like it's not going to work, you might try shocking him. Look him in the eye. Get firm with him and say, "Mister, If you're going to rape me, go right ahead, but I've got to warn you, I've been tested positive for AIDS. You got a 50-50 chance he might believe you. Just hope he doesn't say, that's okay, ma'am, I've got it too. Then you panic, fear, and shock all you want. The Attorney General says, if this guy starts beating you up, there's no talking you can do. But the Attorney General says, take your finger, cram it down your throat, and make yourself repulsive. Throw up all over your body. Do every bodily function you can think of. The odor may turn him off. I do a lot of talking in schools. I've gotten a lot of phone calls from families and girls, high school girls that were attacked on their date by their date in the front seat of a car, called date rape. I know of one girl, Needland, Texas over there, that her boyfriend wouldn't take no for an answer. He hit her in the mouth and started ripping her blouse off. That's not necking or petting, that's rape. And all the girls gagged themselves and threw up all over the front seat, and the guys left them alone. I guarantee my 2 daughters are going to know how to do that when they start dating at 21. One of them says, Daddy, you're hallucinating. We do not recommend that you fight. Seriously, who has a teenage daughter? Anybody got a teenage daughter? You got one. Can your daughter put a dope addict on the ground where he can't move? And if she tries and misses, what happens to her? I know of a lady, let the gardener in to get a drink of water. He attacked her. Oh, she hit him hard. She scratched his face real bad. He beat her half to death. He broke her ribs. He punctured her lung, her liver, broke her jaw, knocked her teeth out, and after she passed out, he raped her. She told me one day, I hurt all the time. I wish I'd never hit him, because all I did was make him mad. Now, I don't mind. If you want to fight, go right ahead. But you got to be aware what happens if you don't do it effectively. You got to put the guy on the ground where he can't move. When I was in the Rangers in Vietnam, we learned how to do that effectively. One of the easiest ways with your hands is his eyes. Most vulnerable thing on his body. Destroy his eyes. It's not difficult. You take your finger, your thumb, you cram it in there, grab whatever you can and jerk it out of his head. Can your teenage daughter do that? And if she misses, he'll do it to her. The larynx, that was one of my favorite. Hit him in the throat. It doesn't take much pressure. You crush it. They die. But if you miss, he'll do it to you. Of course, kick him in the groin, knock him out, kick him in the kneecap, break it, he falls down. But the key word is effective. If you miss, you're in big trouble. Ladies, do not practice on these 2 gentlemen, please. Oh, go ahead. Wait till I leave. The other alternative that the Attorney General recommends is to go through with the ordeal. Now, this is pretty strong. I know rape's a terrible ordeal. But let's get some priorities straight here. Your life is very important. I think it's very special. Rape's a bodily function. You can get over it. A lot of prayer, a lot of help, a lot of love. But if you die, nobody can help you. What I'm trying to say here is, go through with the ordeal. Use it as a weapon. Wait for the guy to make a mistake and save your life. That's what's important. I don't know about you, but my wife's life is important to me. Rape's nothing compared to her life. I'll help her get over it. But if she dies, I can't help her. I know of a 14-year-old girl attacked by 3 men in a mall. One of the most terrible situations I ever heard of. That little girl was suicidal, tried to commit suicide twice the next week. They got her to a good doctor. They fixed her up mentally, physically, spiritually. She started school the next September. Met 2 girls at school that were suicidal because they had been raped but never got to go to a doctor. So she started a group session once a week. Last time I checked, there's 30-something girls in that group, and they're excited about life. That's one little girl that could have died or could have saved her life. She chose to save her life, and look who all she affected from her experience. So I think it's important. Now, people do ask me about weapons. Everybody wants a weapon. A pair of keys held between your fingers can be a weapon. Hit the guy in the eyes with it. A pair of ballpoint pen. Some of you ladies' handbags look like deadly weapons. But the problem is you got to get up close to use them. And if the guy has a knife, you don't have a chance with a ballpoint pen. So everybody says, well, I need a gun. Well, let me tell you about guns. In most places, they're against the law for you to carry. Well, I don't care. Get a lawyer. Number two, that gun can be taken away and used on you. Many police officers get shot with their own gun. Now you have all the guns you want in your home, that's legal, but where do you keep them? And do you keep them loaded? A lot of kids die in this country every year from handgun accidents. And guess what? The majority of those kids come from homes that don't even have a gun. People tell me every day, I don't have a gun. I'm not going to teach my child. Wrong, because down the street from your house is a man that does have a gun. And if your child ever goes down there to play, bang, bang. So I don't care if you have a gun or not, you need to teach your children about handguns, safety. Now my house, I have lots of guns, but I lock them all up in a gun safe. Wife tells the jerk at the front door, I got to go find the gun, get the bullets, be back in 5 minutes. She'll get the wrong gun, wrong bullet anyway. So I don't recommend guns. I don't use guns in my house for protection because of that reason, all those kids that play at my house. There's other alternatives. For instance, a lot of people like chemical protection sprays. You can carry them. Most of the time they're legal. Most places, most airports will confiscate them though. You try to get on an airplane, they find it, they'll take it away from you. Now you can check it in your luggage, but if they try to get on the plane, they'll take it away from you. Now, the one problem I have with these things is that if you ever shoot somebody with one of these and it doesn't work, you're in big trouble. So what works? When I was in Vietnam, we had a chemical that was called CS. You shot CS into a person's face, it would attack the nerve endings of the skin and cause excruciating pain. Wait a minute. If that guy's on drugs or alcohol, he's not going to feel any pain. So it's got to do one more thing, affect the respiratory system. I don't care what kind of drug a person is on, he's got to breathe. If you can make him sneeze, you have time to escape. The Army uses CS today. What bothers me, there's a lot of products out there that don't work. Read the label on them. A lot of times they'll have warnings, you know, use care with intoxicated or demented, enraged, or drug people or something like that. Well, if it has a warning like that on there, why? That's most of your crooks, and it says use care. So you got to be careful. Be sure what you get works. Now, we do recommend you carry these things on your keys. These quick releases are handy. A little simple device like this can save your life. Put your car key on one end. If you ever have to leave that car key with somebody, leave the car key, but don't leave the house key. Use the quick release to disconnect it. Try to keep your keys streamlined. You don't need a lot of keys on there. The most important of all is your car and your house, maybe your office. Put all the others on a separate key ring so you don't have to go thumbing through those keys. And don't forget, don't leave that car key. Don't leave that house key with people. You know, for instance, Thanksgiving, a lady goes into a store, a mechanic's place, and says, I'm going out of town for 4 days for Thanksgiving. Would you please check my car? She leaves all her keys. The kid sweeping the floor overheard it. He went and got a key off the rack and went and store and made a copy of it. They stole everything out of her house. They did catch him. But she shouldn't have left the house key. Now, be sure you know how to use these little devices. This particular model, you rotate the safety, you put your thumb on it, press it down. Now, you do not have to open the flap. Learn how to just rotate that safety underneath the flap. Put your thumb on it and carry it ready everywhere you go. Now, that's very important that you carry it ready. I've had a lot of people use these and they say, listen, if my thumb wouldn't have been on it, the guy would have got me. Keep your thumb on it. Be sure it'll shoot a liquid stream, because if you go out in the wind and it's a gas, you're in trouble. The gas will get blown all over the place. Be sure it's a liquid stream. Shoot the guy in the face. Make sure it'll go 10 feet. Would you hold still, please? I never get a good volunteer out of that. Anyway, know how to use it. Be sure it's no more than 2 years old. CS goes bad after 2 years. Be sure it contains ultraviolet dye. You shoot a suspect, he's marked for 36 hours. Tell the police. And once again, be careful in airports. They also have out there what's called pepper gas. The pepper gas is ground up chili pepper, oleo capsicum. It'll make you sneeze your head off. One problem I have with it, if it's a gas, it's not going to work in the wind. So I like to find the sprays that have both, the CS and the OC, oleo capsicum. That's it. That way you got them both. Okay? Now we do recommend men carry these devices. Put them on their belt. Get one with a clip, put it on their belt. Now that's something you can have with you all the time that might save your life. It's better than nothing. Now if your husband's real macho, I recommend 2. That way you can double draw, okay? That takes a lot of practice. you're home, I recommend a large model. Place it near your front door. Put Velcro on it. Stick it up next to the front door. I've even seen people take wallpaper that matches and wrap it up and put it up next to the front door. The most important thing, wherever you put it near the front door, make sure your children, when they go to the front door, they've got it, or they can get to it quickly. Teach these kids how to do this. It's very, very important. I know of a 4-year-old boy that his mom, she was a single parent, had taken him outside and let him shoot the thing. And one day when a man pushed his way in, he grabbed it and shot the guy. Got mom too, but that's all right, saved her life. I know of a 10-year-old boy came in from school. His parents had it on the bookcase next to the front door. He opened the door, he got it, walked in, shot a man hiding behind the door. Teach your children, especially if they're turnkey kids. Put it by your bed. Middle of the night, you hear a noise, you got something that can save your life but not kill your children. Put them in your car. Car breaks down, at least you got something. Better than nothing. Now, the big problem is, how do you know if it works? There's a lot of stuff out there that's sold that doesn't work. There's 3 simple ways I know of how to check these things. 1, shoot somebody with it. No volunteers? I never get any. 2, shoot yourself with it. First talk I ever gave was a church. I had the little one in my hand and I pulled it out and showed everybody, and when I took the thing and put it back in, it went off and hit me right in the mouth. And I fell on my hands and knees. I literally thought I was going to die. I started gagging, nearly throwing up. I couldn't breathe, and my eyes were burning. The preacher ran up with a wet towel. He says, young man, you didn't have to do that. We'd believe you. Well, I didn't have the heart to tell him it was an accident then. He kept saying all night, boy, you're dedicated. Boy, you're dedicated. Folks, I'm sorry, but I'm just not that dedicated. There's another way to test this device. Get yourself a styrofoam cup. Just these foam cups. Take your spray, shoot it in the cup. What's got to happen? It's got to penetrate the oil of the skin and affect the respiratory system. That's the most critical thing. So the CS can attack the nerve endings, and it'll affect his respiratory system. So if he is on drugs, alcohol, he won't feel the pain, but he'll start sneezing, coughing, choking, maybe even vomiting. So get your styrofoam cup, take your spray, and spray it in the cup. Okay? Let me show you how to do that. Take your spray, spray it in the cup. Take your nose, put it in the cup. I'm not going to... If I pass out and get some ice cream, shove it down my throat. It's got to penetrate that oil, the styrofoam. And it's got to affect your respiratory system. That is very critical. If any of you would like to test it, you're welcome to come up here and take a whiff of it. I'd just soon go ahead and pass out right now. Anyway, if you're going to carry one of those things, if you're going to carry any kind of a weapon, be sure you know how to use it effectively. I don't like to use a weapon that can be taken away and used against you. That's very important. I know of a lady that was pumping gas one day. A kid ran up there with one of those sprays and shot her with it, grabbed her purse and ran. You know what she told me? I'm so glad it wasn't a gun. I wish every crook in town carried those things. They're better than knives and guns. At least you're not going to die. If your child ever shoots themselves, wash them in cold water. Put them in the cool wind, and they'll be fine. And I guarantee they'll never do it again. Anyway, basically that's what I want to talk about today. The little tips I could give you. I have brochures for you. But listen, let's open it up for any questions or answers that you may have, okay? Okay, go ahead.
Well, I bought one of these in the store, but it didn't really work. Where can I get one like you would recommend?
There's a lot of stores that sell these things. A lot of them don't work. Some of them may work. A lot of people out there doing talks like I do, they do have good sprays. The most important thing is be sure and check whatever spray you do get. If you do wish to get one that's powerful, I do have one available. At the end, I'll tell you how to get it. It does have oleocapsicum, it does have CS, it does have ultraviolet dye. But I'll tell you afterwards how to check on that. Now, other questions? Yes, go ahead.
What happens if you're approached with a gun?
You know, that's a tricky question. A lot of people have different answers about that. I've read a lot of where police chiefs have commented on it, and I've formed my own opinion. I know what I'm going to do. If someone approaches me with a gun, the first thing I'm going to do, if I can, I'm going to run. I'm going to try to put distance between me and that gun. Let's think about this. Most of the time, if he has that gun, he wants you to do something for him. He hasn't shot you yet, so he doesn't really want to kill you yet. So he wants to force you into doing something that he wants. Now, if he's got the drop on you, there's not much you can do except just be calm. Try to calm him down with your voice, because he could accidentally pull that trigger. If you're 2 feet away, he can't miss. But if you're running, you've got a chance he may not hit you in the vital part of your body. And there's another possibility. If he does shoot that gun and he does hit you in that parking lot, someone may hear the shot, call the paramedics, they may resuscitate you, save your life, whatever. But if they take you out there in the boonies and shoot you, nobody's going to hear that gunshot. And there's another thing I've thought about. If I'm going to die, folks, I'd rather die in that parking lot than out there in those boonies, because my family may never find my body, and I don't want to put them through that torment. At least in the parking lot, they'll have my body. So that's what I've thought about in my mind, what I'm going to do. If I see a gun and I can run, I'm going to run. He's got to shoot me running. If he's right up on me and I can't run, I'm going to be calm and talk my way out of it. That's one of the best things you can do. Always try to be calm. Be calm in every situation. You never know when the guy may make a mistake. I know people that have been abducted by gunpoint, and they got out in the boonies. The guy made a mistake and saved their life. So don't give up just because you are abducted. Always wait for that opportunity to escape. Okay, another question, yes?
What age should we start teaching our children, and how do we teach them?
I tell you, as early as they can comprehend. Teach them their name, their phone number. A lot of people are teaching their children 911 at very early ages. Well, that's fine if your child can do it, but you better practice it some way. I don't know how to tell you to practice it, but the problem is little tiny children will hit the 9 softly and then hit the 1 hard. They won't dial it correctly. They'll jam the phone. So if they're real little, I think it's better to go for the big O. Just hit the 0. Keep hitting it until the operator says hello, and then tell the operator you have an emergency or you need help or something. 911 is terrific, but little tiny kids may mess up dialing it. So be sure your kids know how to dial it if you're going to teach that to them. One of the best ways to teach kids is by example. A lot of times I'll bring my kids in to see the TV, the news reports, and say, now looky here, what'd that kid do wrong? And then also I live it. One of the most exciting days of my life is when my 16-year-old son drove for the first time by himself. He got in my truck. My truck doesn't have automatic door locks. He shut the door, he put the seatbelt on. Well, I was impressed by that. But what really got me, he reached up with his elbow and hit the lock. He'd seen me do that, and he did it. And that really thrilled me. It brought tears to my eyes, because he learned by example, by me. So I set an example. I have a point that I never stay out past midnight unless I really have to, because I've seen too many statistics that more violent crimes occur after midnight. Your chances go up 200, 300% after midnight that you're going to be harmed. So I try to teach my children that, but I can't teach them if I'm out past midnight. So I try to set an example for my kids, and we try to be in before midnight if we can. If we don't have to go, we just don't go. And so I set a good example for my children, I think, and that's the best way to teach them. But it's very important to teach them. Every year it seems like I'm getting less and less on the age. I hate telling 10-year-old girls about raped, but if they can be raped, I think you better teach them. It's use your discretion. Give them a little bit. Usually I cut off at 10 years old. If they're less than 10, they get something completely different. If they're 10 and above, they get what you've heard today. The important thing is do something. Do something. I have another letter I want to share with you before I quit that kind of ties into this. It's one of my favorite. This little girl's 5 years old. Her name is Lisa. She saw a program I did for a bunch of kids, and I do enjoy talking to kids. That's my favorite talk. A week after she saw the program, her mom took her to a department store to buy her birthday gift. As Lisa was looking at the toys, she wandered off. Her mom wandered off to look at something else. Mommies, don't even turn your back, not even for a second. That child can be gone. Do not send a small child to a public restroom by themselves. I know of an 8-year-old boy raped this summer by a man in a men's restroom. This man, wearing a nice suit, walked up to Lisa, picked up her hand. You know, I get more women tell me they were attacked by men wearing suits. I think they use it as a disguise to throw the guy off guard, or throw the woman off guard. So I don't care what they look like. If you don't know them, you have to be careful. Well, anyway, this man walked up to Lisa, picked up her hand, and said, "Young lady, your mommy's lost, looking for you at the front of the store." Now, Lisa had a personality that was unbelievable. She was outgoing, talked to everybody, friendly as can be, happy little girl. Just a perfect little girl, you know, real happy. She went with the guy. She believed him and started for the front door. All he did was pick up her hand. "Young lady, your mommy's lost, looking for you at the front door," and she went. Well, as they passed the checkout stand, Lisa got scared. She didn't see her mom, but she remembered something she had practiced the week before in that program that night. She grabbed a stranger's pants pocket, hung on to it, and screamed as loud as she could, "This is not my daddy!" And the man holding her hand dropped her hand and ran. Now that's something simple you can teach your children. Get them around you and make them scream, "This is not my daddy, this is not my mommy." They may do that to you some night for not buying them a candy bar at the grocery store. If they do, just run and leave them, put them up for adoption. This mom says, "We'll never forget how you taught those kids how to say, 'This is not my daddy.'" Now, this was a special program. Every once in a while, I'll get these programs where I have these strong feelings about people. A lot of times I can tell you if a woman's been attacked by the way she acts in my program, the way she does her head when I mention certain things. I can feel these things. Well, this program was one of those programs. I had a feeling. I came home and told my wife, "Well, that was special." Well, I found out a few weeks later why special it was. I was scheduled to do this program, and I scheduled it and set it up, and I was called the next day by a university nearby to talk to 300 co-eds the same night. I felt like that was more important, so I canceled this program and scheduled it for a month later, 30 days later. 15 minutes before I walked out my front door, the phone rang. That university called and had to cancel the program because the campus was flooded. I couldn't even get there. Well, I sat down and watched TV. The phone rang again, and the lady I had programmed this program with was in shock. She had forgot to cancel the program, and all the parents and kids were there. I had about 75 people. She was actually calling to see if my wife could do the program. Well, I was home. She was thrilled. I threw my tie on. 30 minutes later, I was there. I had a feeling after this happened that I was manipulated that night. And I think you know by whom. And I'm so thrilled. Because if I wouldn't have done that talk this night, this little girl would probably not be here today. Now you got a chance to go home and talk to your family now, or you can wait 30 days. I don't suggest you take that chance. You better go home and talk to your family now. I want to thank you all for coming today. I've really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you very much.